So hello, today we are going to talk about how to read a food label. You may think that's an easy thing to do, but if you're really looking at the specific things that you need to look for your health, you might find it more complicated than you realize. So we have new nutrition labels this year. You may have noticed that a lot of companies have taken advantage of making the whole package look different and new and updated, since they had to update the back where the nutrition facts are listed on every product that's out there. So one of the first and most important things that you need to look at when you're looking at the nutrition facts is what the serving size is. And I'm so glad that they have kind of made that a larger print so that you can see right away what a serving is. It's so important for you to know that you can't eat the whole bag or the whole can of something, but you could have whatever this particular item happens to be. 2/3 of a cup would be the serving size that you could have. So that is very important. For me as a dietitian, the next section is not as important. I'm not about the calories. Now, if the calories are high, that's not a good thing, but I want you to look more at the macronutrients and things below the calories. And so that's where I want to spend our focus right now. One of the first things that I notice in working with a lot of patients is that they do not get enough protein. So we're going to start actually kind of at the bottom of the list and work up. Protein is so important, and especially as we get older, it's important that we get enough protein. And the rule of thumb that I kind of use is anytime you're looking for protein and you look right next to the word protein where it says 3G here, anytime you see 7 grams or more, so 7G or more, you can know that it's a really quality serving of protein. So that would be what would be in one egg, one piece of individually wrapped cheese, or one small piece of luncheon meat. But 7 is a portion, is a hearty portion of protein. Carbohydrates, that's the next area where people really just kind of look at carbohydrates, they look at fiber, they look at sugars. Most people look at sugars. If you notice, fiber and sugar and added sugars are indented under total carbohydrate. So the biggest number that you're going to ever see is going to be right here by total carbohydrates. Here it says 37 grams. So even if you have diabetes, when people say, don't I look at sugars? I'll say, not only do you want to look at sugars, you want to look at maybe flour, which is also a carbohydrate. And so this is much more important for you to focus on than just sugars or just fiber. A serving of carbohydrate is going to be 15 grams. I tell people that's like the size of a tennis ball, a baseball, or a small apple. So if you think of any food that you have that's a carbohydrate that you could put into a size of a baseball, tennis ball, or small apple, let's say you took a piece of bread and you just kind of squished it up, that's about 15 grams of carbohydrate. Or if you mounded up a portion of pinto beans or black beans into the size of about a baseball or a tennis ball, that's how you would know that you have one portion of carbohydrate. Sodium is another thing that people like to look for. And I tell people that here, if you see 300 milligrams or less, just go on and put it in the buggy, because that's not very high for a single serving. Now, areas where you're going to find a lot of sodium are going to be in canned soups, but not necessarily in canned beans these days. And so I have an example here of beans that have no salt added. And these cost the exact same price as the other guys. And so when I buy these, I don't even rinse the water off, because I know that the liquid that's in there doesn't have a lot of salt. So this particular black beans, no added salt, only has 10 milligrams of sodium. Now, a regular can of black beans is going to have about 350 milligrams. So again, this is a great option. And again, it's right next to the other beans and it's the same price. All you need to do is put a flavor enhancer in it other than sodium, and it's going to taste great. So that's a really good option. Cholesterol. I see a lot of people that have elevated cholesterol, but you know what? There's just not that many foods that have a lot of cholesterol in them. Shellfish, If you're eating a dozen eggs a week, that's going to be a problem. But most of us are just getting too much total fat in, not just cholesterol. So then I like to look at total fat, not just trans fats, not just saturated fats, because that gets complicated. But if the total fat is high, and high would be anything over 7 to 10 grams would be high for a serving of food, then you have to reconsider, well, okay, it was right spot on for protein, and it was a good carbohydrate choice, and it wasn't high in sodium, and it's got about 8 grams of fat. I'd put it in the buggy. I would get it. So again, looking for 8 to 10 or 7 to 10 grams or less of total fat still gives you a little flavor, because it's not all about just drinking water and eating carrots, which would have 0 grams of fat. Now, you may not need to look at all these things. Maybe you just have high blood pressure and you're really needing to look at sodium, but maybe you've become a vegetarian and you're not eating a lot of protein, and you need to know what your protein needs are. I'm calculating for people a lot these days what their individual protein needs are, so that they can try hard to get those in every day. The other thing about the food label that I like is they changed what used to be below the black line down here for just vitamins and minerals, and they've shortened it a little bit. They put vitamin D on here because now every time you get blood work done, or for your yearly checkup or whatever, they're going to check vitamin D, because they found that so many of us had low vitamin Ds, and when you have a low vitamin D, your body does not absorb calcium the way it needs to. So it's very important that that number is adequate, and if it's not, you'll just take a vitamin D supplement and your provider will let you know that. I love that it still has calcium on here, it has iron, and it has potassium, but it's taken a lot of other things off that we didn't necessarily need. And it also took off all that stuff at the bottom that talked about, oh, for a 2,000 calorie diet, you need this amount of nutrients. So it's a much better food label now than it used to be. But again, you don't have to look at everything. If you had diabetes, the first 2 things I'm going to tell you to look for are going to be look at your protein and look at your carbohydrate. If you have high blood pressure, I'm going to say just look at your sodium. If you're really needing to cut your total fat down, you're going to want to look at total fat. So anyway, that's just kind of an overview of things that you need to look at for the food label. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to help you. But knowing how to shop for items at the grocery store that you buy all the time and feeling confident that you bought the right thing, that's a real important thing.